My name is Mike Angelo. Obviously, I am the manager of analytics engineering here at Gopuff. Been here about 4 months, building out the practice. And fun fact about me is obviously my full name is Michelangelo. You'll see the Michelangelo Ninja Turtle in the back. Not named after the Ninja Turtle or the Renaissance artist. I'm named after my father, unfortunately.
Hey everybody, my name is Hassan. I'm a lead consultant here at Montreal Analytics. Fun fact about myself is that I can taste almost anything and anytime when I'm cooking, which always baffles my girlfriend.
Mike, before we get started, can you quickly elaborate on what is Gopuff and what this company does?
Gopuff really is what we're trying to be in terms of our overarching vision statement is really the go-to instant eats platform. So our value proposition is that by the time you go into our app and you order, again, it's all instant eats stuff. So anything that you would find at like a traditional kind of pharmaceutical retail store. We also have a bunch of hot foods. You could get beer, you could get liquor. So we really have a broad array and portfolio of things that you can order. And our value proposition is that we could deliver your order in under 30 minutes and for a very flat $1.95 delivery fee. And with that, all of our infrastructure is vertically integrated. So traditionally, if you were to order from a DoorDash or a Grubhub, a driver would have to go to a restaurant or some other storefront to pick up what you would need. And then they would come to you. All the products that you order at Gopuff are all centrally maintained in our inventory in our micro fulfillment centers. So the driver is just going from point A to point B in terms of taking it from the fulfillment center to you. So that's how we're able to essentially kind of be the industry leader in terms of speed and availability and convenience in that respect.
Nice. Any plan to come to Canada?
I would not be surprised if that would happen in the near future.
Thanks, Mike. Actually, I wanted to ask a question to the audience before we move into your stack and the challenges you had and how you figured out a way forward. I wanted to ask to the folks here, the current DBT setup that you have at the moment, is it pristine? So you're very, very happy with what you've built? Do you think it could use some refactoring, or do you think it will need some refactoring sooner than later? Or is it just at the moment non-existent and you're here, in your company? So what do we have here at the moment? Could use some refactoring, still in the lead. Definitely refactoring is there between the need and the could use. No pristine deployments. Hassan, do we have a pristine deployment at Analytics?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you everyone for participating in this. Before we move to more conversation with Hassan on the path forward, could you elaborate a bit on the data stack of Gopuff and the challenge you've experienced when you started at the company?
Yeah, for sure. It's a stack that Montreal Analytics likes and has expertise on. So one of my first forays or endeavors into supporting Gopuff was migrating off of Redshift to Snowflake, which is a major labor of love, but we're happy that we did that. And then obviously heavy users of DBT in terms of orchestrating all of our transformations. And then we use Looker as a BI platform. So for us, I think the one thing that we know we have, or at least we're very confident it is our tech stack, but Gopuff is a company that has grown exponentially. So just to give you some numbers in terms of like economies of scale, the company overall is about 6 to 7 years old. We've been growing consistently year over year, but just 3 years ago, I guess 3-ish years ago in 2018, we had 55 MFCs, micro fulfillment centers. And by the end of this year, we're trying to get to between 500 and 550. So it is a insane hyper growth phase, like on a rocket ship. And last year, we were valued at about 3.9 billion. And this past July, our valuation went all the way up to 15 billion. So as you can imagine, like any company going through that level of exponential growth and bringing in that level of functional capital into play is just pushing and pushing and pushing, trying to get our brand awareness out there, trying to expand our territory growth. And that inherently drives more complexity into how we run and operate our business. So we have far more tooling and software and applications now than we did 3, 4, 5, 7 years ago. So obviously that in turn generates far more data that we need to be able to analyze. Our business is inherently more complex. We have different strategic partnerships and initiatives, different ways of reaching customers that we didn't have before. And as all of this was manifesting, there was more strategic folks being brought in, more folks that were kind of running the ship operationally being brought in. The data team didn't grow at that exponential growth, or it didn't really grow in concert with more and more kind of strategic thinkers and doers that were being brought into the org. Because the data team was so thin, we really only had enough capacity to kind of support very prescriptive analyses or just kind of build point solutions. And that kind of marinated over time and continued to kind of perpetuate and fester. And now we have a situation where we just have a graveyard of reports, and we have a situation where our BI infrastructure was not built to scale. It was really just built, kind of data was thought of as a service, and we just spun up what the business needed at that given point in time. But we know that obviously we need to rethink the way that data is presented to our internal customers. Traditionally or historically, we had a data engineering team that piped data in. We had an analytics team that would analyze data. The gap that we're filling with the advent of the analytics engineering team is to govern data, think about how to implement it strategically, and pivot from thinking about data as a service to data as a product. Let's build things that are performant, rigorously documented, tested, they're scalable, they're trusted, they're certified sources of truth.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm interested to know if you feel like what Mike described as struggle for a specific organization. Have you seen that throughout other organizations, or do you think that's expected for any organization that is scaling fast?
I'm struggling to maybe find an organization that has a DBT deployment where I didn't see these sort of issues popping up. Whether from my previous experience, whether the clients we've worked with, kind of issue pops up a lot. And it's normal for startups to have this sort of issue because at the beginning, you're just trying to move fast. You are always either one person or a very small data team trying to service an entire organization, which means that you are buried in ad hoc requests. You are buried in creating constant reporting and dashboards. You're not really focused on what does this metric mean or actually defining or sitting down and setting these KPIs. You're just outputting. And when you're in a constant state of just outputting, it gets reflected in your DBT setup because you're quick to create these models, you're quick to output, and then you're immediately needing to connect it to a visualization tool that will then give access to the individuals. But then the other problem is usually because you're so tight on time, you basically give them free rein to do what they want on this BI tool, which then compounds the problem because suddenly you have so many more dashboards and reports, not just your own. Everybody has their own way of looking at the data. They might have used that one revenue metric that you created in one model, and another person used the other revenue model, the other revenue metric that created in another model, and then suddenly no one is really talking the same language anymore. This is, I think, more of a problem of where we are currently in the data space and where we are in our evolution in the industry, but definitely it's a problem felt by many.
We understand the challenge, Mike, you elaborated. So what was the path forward?
I could give you at least just a high level kind of vision statement on what we were thinking about. And then Hassan, obviously, you can add more breadth and depth into the actual implementation and how we're executing. Like I said before, growing exponentially ultimately manifests in far more complexity in your business, both technically and operationally, and the processes that you support. So in terms of our vision statement, we said, let's start with the company's strategic initiatives and OKRs as a North Star and say, let's draw parallels in terms of what the business thinks is important and what gold data products we need to manufacture and curate. Don't even spend time looking at your current implementation, right? Don't waste time on the status quo. So for us, we started with the North Star. We went to stakeholders and interviewed them and asked them for key inputs and outputs and how they wanted to manage the health of their business. And fortunately for us, we had sponsorship and support from our executive team to invest and put money where their mouth was. They said, we need to build scalable data products and we need to govern and standardize the way that we manage our business with data. And we're growing our analytics engineering practice out very, very quickly in doing that. And we're, to be honest with you all, like carving out a brand new DBT and Looker repo and starting from scratch. So I say all that just to say, be very, very honest and transparent with your executives and your leadership team. If you feel like there's merit in starting from scratch, and that's the best way to getting data to be thought of as a product and a strategic asset for your organization, draw up a business case for it, work with people like Montreal Analytics who have expertise on that stack.
Thank you, Mike. Do you want to add anything to that, Hassan?
One thing that I guess I didn't really share, but Montreal Analytics, we specialize in implementing these end-to-end modern data stack solutions clients, and basically gave you the high level steps of what we did and how we did it. And the first step was we went in, we did audits. What did we have to deal with? What are the issues? And we communicated that to the team. This kind of sprung up several recommendations on how we could have moved forward. But really the best one, the one that I wanted, the one that I was afraid the most, because not a lot of companies are eager to jump on this specific recommendation, but it was really, let's start fresh. Let's burn everything down, use what we can, and start anew, because refactoring an instance of that size as it's currently flying and being used, very inefficient, it's expensive, it will take, and it will break eventually. So what we did was decided to start fresh with best practices in mind. And we had a lot of help from the Gopuff team. They did a fantastic job on honing down the KPIs, what was important in terms of reporting, what was important in terms of metrics. And then we took that to start building out these new instances. When you're building out these types of instances, you also have to take into account you won't be the only one developing on them. So it was very important from the get-go to start thinking about the guidelines that we wanted, the processes that we wanted, implementing development tools and workflows to help us with the development of things. So don't be afraid of using things like DBT expectations, DBT pre-commit, spectacles as well. So we were able to make sure that whoever starts developing on this new DBT repo will have to follow some certain guidelines. And if they're not following them, then we automated detection of these kind of issues. And of course, you then implement CI/CD pipelines. You make sure that, and this is an important aspect that we're still working on, making sure that Looker and DBT coexist in a clean way, in a consistent way, in a way that doesn't actually lead to more reporting sprawl or metrics breaking on the Looker side. Because as soon as something goes wrong in your visualization layer, then trust starts to decline. And this is something that we want to avoid from the get-go. So using development tools like Spectacles allows us to keep these two instances in check and communicating between each other. From there, you start working kind of towards higher up on the hierarchy of needs, and you start talking about governance and implementing such processes across the board.
The thing is that since the path forward was to start from scratch, I actually had this question in the Slack channel, and it's probably more for Mike, former product manager. I know that if I come forward to a leadership team and say, well, we're going to be starting this feature from scratch, but it's going to take, 3 months to deliver. In between, we're not going to be maintaining whatever we have. And that's a hard sell for anyone. Mike, I'm curious to know how you handled exec team and the fact that you wanted to start from scratch the analytics platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'll fully acknowledge that I am lucky and fortunate in the sense that my executive team was on board and supported that approach, because it's a tough pill to swallow. But for us, we had to be very, very honest and truthful, like I said before, in terms of the gaps and the pain points and the opportunities with our current deployment. We had situations where we had escalations from the field saying that Looker was super, super slow and it wasn't performant. It's because we had event level data that somehow was making its way to a BI tool. We had situations where I had general managers from micro fulfillment centers reaching out to me saying, why am I seeing two different values for this metric? I had plenty of situations where a business team came to me with a request to add a feature to a particular DBT model or Looker asset. And it was very difficult in terms of our time to market, to produce and actually ship that enhancement. Part of this is you just have to build your business case and say, for us to be able to support the business and improve decision speed and decision quality, we need to build something that's scalable. And if we don't take dramatic or drastic measures here, the business is only going to keep growing, and these problems are only going to continue to fester, and they're going to get worse and worse and worse, and you're going to have a snowball effect. So with that, we also didn't say that we are going to cut and use all of our resources on essentially this 2.0 world. We came up with a strategy that said, all right, there's going to be resourcing that's set aside and allocated to keep the lights on and focus on future iterations to our current implementation. But on the same token, make sure that we had resourcing that in a parallel path was executing on the vision of building the repo from scratch. So again, it all starts with be very honest and truthful, and then be empathetic with your end users and articulate that to your executive team. Not that, hey, I'm a new analytics engineering manager, I want to build something that's better. You come in and you say, I've actually spoken to MFC operators, strategic thinkers, analysts that are kind of embedded in our various business units. They don't trust the data, or they don't think it's usable or performant. We have to change the culture around data and start to think about it as a strategic asset. And the only way to do it is to call a spade and take dramatic measures and build a plan where you could start implementing a 2.0 strategy.
All right. Amazing. Thanks for that answer, Mike. Well, I know we are almost at time, but I think what would be valuable for the audience here is then what would be your recommendation? We've got some folks who are going to be deploying DBT in their organization, and because they don't have it yet, what would be your recommendations to build a DBT setup that is future-proof, if that's possible?
Don't operate on assumption and just build what you think. Go to your business stakeholders, especially your executive team and your leaders that know the future of the business, know what the OKR are going to be next year and the year thereafter, and so on and so forth, and use that as your North Star, and then start to take some time to put together a conceptual and logical framework for how you want all of the data to fit together, and then draw direct lines between strategic initiatives and data products, and then ruthlessly rationalize your requirements. And as you're putting them together, talk to people from product, talk to people from the software teams, and talk to key practitioners in your business units. You operate in a silo and you don't talk to people that know the technology and know how it's going to advance, but you also don't have the operational or domain discipline to understand how the business is actually run. You're going to miss something along the way. So what I would say is the time to talk to as many people as you can. Don't boil the ocean, but find a couple of key practitioners in each of those areas. Really define a true and through kind of strategic vision, and then how that kind of correlates to your company's OKRs. Then from there, go into data products and inputs and outputs. Map all of that out. Be very transparent with your stakeholders and build a roadmap. If you do all of those things and you get everybody on the boat and you think in a structured way, and you tangibly demonstrate this is your OKR and this is the data product that's going to drive value and correlate to that, it's very easy to get people on the boat.
Wow, great answer. Hassan, you want to add anything to that?
There's a few things that I would add, but definitely what Mike said, the way that I usually look at this in terms of if you really want to have a scalable, future-proof DBT project, I would say there's 4 concepts that come to mind. Respect your time, use dry in terms of the way that you develop, the dry coding standard, automate all the things, and document all the things. Respect your time really goes with what Mike just said. Don't build things for the sake of building things, because eventually you're always going to have to refactor and come back to editing over and over again. So make sure you're planning, make sure you're getting buy-in, make sure that everybody's aligned before you start building, and really think through the metrics you are building and the different layers that you are building. Now, the dry coding standard, of course, do not repeat yourself. So make sure that you're coding everything once. Do not repeat metrics across your repos. Do not create sprawl for yourself. And when you are coding, be as efficient as possible. Automate all the things, automate the testing, test once, twice, 3 times across all of the different layers, and also make sure that everybody is using the same standard, the same type of testing, and automate that as much as possible, because you want to set them, you want to forget them, and you only want to come back to them when something is going wrong and you are being alerted. And finally, documentation. Documentation is so important. Even if I don't document something, I will forget it. I know myself. And I think most analytics engineers here, we're not made to just remember things off the top of our head 24/7. We see way too many numbers, way too many metrics every single day to just pull a definition out of our head. So please document and make sure that document is accessible to everybody.
So testing, documentation, that's pretty cool. I think we covered it all. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Hassan, for your participation there.